This is Kiki's mom. Her name is Kokiri, and she's a witch. And this Kokiri, she has these flasks and graduated cylinders and droppers. She's making magic medicines with a procedure that looks like a science experiment. What I want you to realize is this. In this scene with Kokiri, here at the left end, there is this huge pot. It holds flowers, so it seems like a vase, but it's not. This also appears in other scenes with Kokiri. This huge pot is in every scene with Kokiri. It's positioned so that it's noticeable to the audience. When Kokiri is in the scene, there is the pot, like behind her, or just somewhere else. Wherever it is, the pot is shown somewhere relatively noticeable. This big pot, there is a specific word for describing this. It's not mentioned in the film, but it's called cauldron. The name of the pot derives from an epic scene in Shakespeare's work. This film, I bet only a few people saw this. The title is Black Cauldron, about 30 years ago. Tokyo Disneyland had an act called Cinderella Castle Mystery Tour. I joined the tour, so I remember it. I think the event was based on this Disney animation film Black Cauldron, released in 1985. A witch in the film uses a cauldron, the big pot, for preparing an evil potion. We know this typical image of witches, boiling a potion in a pot. We see it in a lot of movies and manga. These images all originated from Act 4 in Macbeth by Shakespeare. In Act 4 of Macbeth, 3 witches boil potions in the cauldron in a cave. It contains rotten intestines, a poisonous frog, eye of a newt, and the liver of a Jewish person. All those weird things are boiled. There is a line that says, double, double, toil and trouble. And another line says, fire burn and cauldron bubble. This is the opening scene of Act 4. So, if a witch has a pot, people should immediately relate that with the cauldron in Shakespeare's Macbeth. This is what Hayao Miyazaki expects people to think. So this big pot is a cauldron for making witches' potions. Let's go back to this image. So the big pot is a cauldron for making witches' potions. And Kokiri, Kiki's mom, is a successor of a classic witch. But Kokiri decided to take the easy route. So for her now, the cauldron means nothing more than a dry flower container. She put in dry flowers. Like here you see, it has dry flowers in it. What happened is that Kokiri, she inherited the cauldron from her parents, but ended up using it as a container for dry flowers. And Kokiri uses the science equipment, like the flask, graduated cylinder, and dropper I mentioned, to make witch potions. So she is some slacker. Many analysis blogs and reviews on Kiki's delivery service state that Kokiri, Kiki's mom, has a peaceful life in the countryside, married a human male, and has a child. So she can be seen as a rollout model of witches, a happy upstart version. And Kiki would someday be a sweet mom like Kokiri. That's what they said. However, that's what normal people think, and not how Miyazaki sees her. Miyazaki he is more on the witch's side. I mean, he uses the magic of his anime and drawings. So he is from a lineage of artisans. So this Kokiri is a kind of person who failed to properly handle the cauldron. She inherited the magic pot from her witch's family and turned it into a vase for dry flowers. And she also forgot the spells she inherited. She mentions about a decrease in population and magic power of witches. Like she says it's a sign of the times. But she's wrong. She's supposed to boil herbs with the cauldron, But instead, she simply uses chemicals. She takes the easy way, using a spirit flame. So she can only make rheumatism medicine, which might not even work. Only the old lady tells her that nothing works as well as her rheumatism. So Kokiri's thing is appreciated only by this old lady in the neighborhood. If you observe carefully as a witch, she's a dropout, and she blames it on the era. We listen to the character's line, and we simply accept that. But actually, Kokiri is an incompetent witch who makes mistakes quite often. Such a scene is not in the original book. Miyazaki decided to add scenes where Kokiri's spells fail, which is not in the original book. The scene where Kiki tells her she's leaving tonight and Kokiri says, "Wait!" and a thing in her hand pops up. It's depicted like a rather humorous scene where you can see the power of the spell rises along with her temper. But this just actually demonstrates her poor skills as a witch. So she restarts the procedure to make the medicine, but it's just something that the old lady would appreciate. It means her medicine is only effective to those who believe. So she can only make something effective on a placebo level. Is Kokiri ashamed of herself? Does she actually take magic seriously? The answer is no. You see in this image, like this, she extracts an herbal ingredient. Actually, she is supposed to use witch's intuition and instinct to determine the quantity. But instead, she uses this precise balance to measure the quantity in grams. That's how she makes her medicine. And behind that, this stove hasn't been used for years. This big stove in the background has not been used in quite a while. The cauldron is supposed to be hanging from there, so she did try to use it in the past, but left it unused for decades. Kokiri says that magic power is getting weaker, like it's a sign of the times. However, the actual procedure required lizard's eyes and other stuff to be boiled 3 days straight. That was so cumbersome, so she resorted to science, the easy way, and so she is forgetting the proper way of making herbs. Why did Miyazaki have to depict her like this? This episode is not in the original book. He did not have to draw in the cauldron. It's not in the book, but he just had to because it represents what Miyazaki felt as a very serious problem. Many animators are getting good at computers for convenience sake. They simply sample live actions. Like they sample the movement from a movie of an actual animal to make realistic animated movements of the animal. They didn't spend enough time on sketch practice since they were kids, so they can't draw a four-legged animal with proper perspective. So they can't even draw simple actions properly. This situation of new animators, Miyazaki had seen it through interactions with these young animators. They're what Kiki's mom, Kokiri, represents. That's who she is. People say that it's a sign of the times. Some say it's just natural because they grew up with videos and because CGI is growing so much. Miyazaki saw a rapid loss of the animation techniques passed on from the time when he was working in toy animation, like it was a tradition only passed down to their heirs. And 1989 is marked as a huge transitional period. So this Kokiri, the mother, is depicted to be accepted as, how should I put it, an ideal mom to those nice Ghibli fans. She's depicted as a kind and wonderful mother figure. But Miyazaki, an artisan in the lineage of witches or wizards, can clearly see the flaws of Mother Kokiri. As an artisan, she is extremely incompetent. Miyazaki sees her that way. Kiki's dad, Okino, tells his daughter when she is leaving. You can always come home if things don't work out. He hugs Kiki while he says it. There is a book called Roman Album for Kiki's Delivery Service. In this book, Miyazaki mentions this line, saying, "What kind of father is he? He just denounces this father like that." I mean, we see this father saying kindly, "You can always come home if things don't work out." And there is this mother who doesn't go tough on her. And she says something like, I can only make medicine and fly. And my daughter Kiki ended up being only capable of flying. This easygoing attitude does show her as a kind mother figure. However, Miyazaki denounces them for saying things like, you can always come home if things don't work out, to their child, to deprive the daughter of a chance to grow up and stand on her own feet. So, as an artist, the animator Hayao Miyazaki sees Kiki's parents as modern parents who spoil their children. So, the world of Kiki's delivery service, according to Miyazaki, can be automatically translated as follows. A girl raised by no good parents who cannot properly raise their children. Now, she can only think about herself, always thinking of what people can do for her instead of what she can do for other people. The only way for such a spoiled brat to be independent is to be stronger than her parents. She faces so many challenges to be stronger than her parents, to stand up. It's not about a girl becoming a decent witch. It's about becoming a decent person and not a decent witch. Miyazaki was trying to make a film about a woman training herself to be a decent person. So we can see that Miyazaki was trying to make a rather over-the-top anti-fantasy. I mean, it's just... the concept is just completely opposite of Harry Potter. It's not about becoming a better wizard, but a better person. And the parents I just mentioned, are they bad and harmful to their child? Miyazaki thinks that they are no good. But the way he depicted these parents... I mean, a girl is spoiled by no good parents who cannot properly raise their children. So she can only think about herself. She struggles to become independent. Then for the parents in Spirited Away, I mean, he depicts them with so much love. He thinks they are bad parents, yet depicts them with so much love. Like he's saying he can relate to them. Okay. I'll show Spirited Away's... No, I mean, the storyboard of Kiki's delivery service. I'm sorry it's a little difficult to see. It's written Kiki with her open arm says, Dad. And she says, would you pick me up like you used to? And then the father immediately understands his daughter's feeling and cheerfully opens his arms. You see, it's written that he immediately understood Kiki's feelings. And this scene where he picks her up and turns her around, it's quite long. Why did Miyazaki draw this scene? Why did he have to make this scene? This is another subtext only explained with the image. The scene includes both Miyazaki's love for the characters and his opinion of the modern family. I mean, why did he pick her up instead of just cuddling her? It's because Kiki will be flying in the sky with her magical power, that is, with her own power. But what she actually wants is her daddy to pick her up. So he sees that she's worried about flying to a town she doesn't know. He sees that this is an act of regression, saying that she wants to fly, picked up by her daddy's power. He understood that and so gave her what she wanted. Kiki's affectionate gesture, it seems so cute to Miyazaki, so he draws this scene from the line, Dad, so adorably. And Miyazaki also likes Kiki's father, who can't help but to spoil his daughter. This is called Enveloped in Tenderness. The singer sings when enveloped in tenderness in the closing tune. This love spoils Kiki and deprives her of a chance to grow up. What I've been talking about, it may sound like my fantasy, but actually this scene is linked to another scene. This scene is linked to a scene where Kiki is depressed in the later half. I'll tell you how it's linked. So Kiki made up her mind to settle in a town called Koriko. She forced herself to make a delivery on a rainy day and ends up catching a cold. Osono, a lady who works as a baker and takes care of Kiki, she visits Kiki to make sure she's okay. While visiting Kiki, Osono tells her she'll fix her some hot oatmeal with raisins. She makes the oatmeal, puts it in a bowl, and leaves it on a table, not blowing on a spoon and bringing it to her mouth. Not like an indulgent parent who does that and says, here you go. She says, you have to eat if you want to get well, and just simply leaves the room. And Kiki just calls her as she is leaving the room. She says, Osono, with the tone exactly the same as when she said dad. She just simply calls her name Osono. In response, Osono stops, looks back, and replies, She keeps going, At this point, Kiki is matured enough to say, never mind. This, her line, never mind, represents a huge step toward growing up. Here, what she really wanted to say was something like, can you stay for a little while? Like when she was worried and asked her dad to pick her up and cuddle her. She was in the most desperate time and wanted to ask Osono to stay with her, but she managed to hold that desire back. This marks a huge step in Kiki growing up. She accepted and thanked the person other than her parents for doing her a favor and managed to refrain from asking the person to stay with her and spoil her. In this scene, Osono carefully keeps her distance from Kiki. I mean, when Kiki says Osono, she takes one step back. She takes a step back from the door as a gesture indicating she can stay. But Osono stops at that position. And she replies, What she is doing is pretending to be unaware of Kiki's feelings. Kiki is trying to hold back in asking Osono to stay for a little while. This acting features an amazing sense of timing. So the father understood the feeling of Kiki when she said dad and gave her what she wanted. Osono also understood the feelings of Kiki when she said Osono, but decided to pretend that she didn't, just to let her be. These two scenes, these scenes with the father and Osono, they are created to be complementary to each other. In an anime these days, Osono would say, I know you want me to spoil you, and it's okay. She would say this kind of thing. After hearing that, Kiki will dive into Osono's arms crying. And Osono will go, you don't have to try to be so tough, silly girl. So it would be a tearjerker for the audiences. But crying will be an emotional catharsis, and nothing more. You cry, and that's it. You only remember that Kiki was lonely and desperate. But she says, Osono. And then she says, never mind. This conversation keeps audiences from crying for emotional catharsis. I mean, Miyazaki wanted to depict her growing up and was not interested in tear-jerking. He did not want Kiki to make audiences cry. He wanted her to grow up. So why did she have to leave her parents and live by herself? The way Miyazaki saw it, Kiki's dad should have refused Kiki asking him to spoil her for one last time, saying, you're living by yourself, you're not a kid anymore. He should have laughed away her request, Dad, would you pick me up? By saying, come on, you're not a kid anymore, and acting thick-skinned. But he can't. It's his daughter. He loves his daughter too much. Actually, Miyazaki does want to depict such a daddy who is crazy about his daughter. But Osono understands the feelings of Kiki, who is at the verge of giving in. But she pretends she doesn't, just to let Kiki be. It's because they're not related. She can be more objective. Kiki is not her child, so she doesn't go so far as to spoil her. Her emotional brake is fully working to take appropriate distance. This is the reason why people should live independently from their parents. It's the only way people can grow up to be adults. The fundamental theme of this Kiki's delivery service is about becoming independent from parents. There is nothing fantasy about it at all. This theme, for us living in 2020, Miyazaki's opinion is a little hard on our ears and hearts. This old man born before the war, his opinion sure is hard for us to accept. Yeah, I get that, but sorry, I'm still living with my parents. I bet a lot of you feel this way. I know it really pulls at your heartstrings. But as soon as you ignore or pretend you don't see this, Miyazaki's opinion, Kiki's delivery service, will be enveloped in tenderness, to be nothing more than a sweet animation film. I know it's important for kids to enjoy this stuff while they are kids. But when you grow up and see it, you might want to put in a grown-up's perspective. then instead of simply relating to the characters, you'll enjoy the fact that the anime is a fine work with many film techniques for the viewers to think about. You'll enjoy finding them everywhere in the film. If you do that, for example, like when Kiki catches a cold, and when she is at the hilltop feeling desperate after arriving at Koriko and before she starts living in the bakery, Kiki sees the town as a place where she can only feel unfriendliness, hatred, and rejection from the people. This refusal she feels is not resolved because she meets some nice people. She overcomes the struggle to live by herself, to be mature and strong. That's when she realizes that people in the town had this small feeling of tenderness from the start. So in the end, she can write to her parents, telling them that she loves this town. I mean, lonely and desperate people should not wait until they are enveloped in tenderness. They should hold on until they get used to it. Then, the person will realize slight kindness and tenderness are actually everywhere, to finally be comfortable where he or she is. Well, the opinion is a little hard on my ears and my heart. I get his opinion, but I always wish to live my life easier. So I lock myself in making this content for YouTube and Nikonama videos. What's amazing about Kiki's delivery service is, like I said, development as a person is depicted instead of development as a witch. And when she becomes a better person, her great magic power is unleashed. So the idea is that personal development enables Kiki to use this great magic power that surpasses her mother's.